Hello, Packers fans, and welcome to a Victory Friday. How often do we say that on the Pack Attack cast? What an exciting game last night against the Washington Commanders. The Green Bay Packers held on 27 to 18 in a game that was not nearly as close as the score if you watched it, but it was a very ideal win for the Green Bay Packers, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But this was a great game for the Green Bay Packers. And before I get into the game, I'm not the biggest fan. Excuse me. I'm not the biggest fan of the Amazon crew and the pregame for Amazon. Sometimes they can be a little too CGI, a little too, just not what I would want for an ideal pregame show. It's hard to explain. It's just kind of mid. That's probably the best way to do it. The way the kids they'll say it's a mid pregame usually. You got some B team commentators. You've got some. I mean, it's Tony Gonzalez. I mean, it's not fair to call him B team, but they're just not network level talent in my opinion. But long tangent going short here, I did actually really like the pregame that Amazon put together. They really did a great job of capturing what the feel is like for a game in Green Bay. For those of you that have never been to a game, it's a very college atmosphere. Everybody's just really super chill and hanging out and having a good time and having old fashions out of the back of trucks and having brats. It's just a very small town college football feel to the games for the Green Bay Packers. And I do think that the Amazon crew and their producers more specifically did a great job of showing small town Green Bay and their love of the Packers and how chill it is that you could literally walk up to where they're doing their pregame and say hi and get a bratwurst from them. And it was just a really cool pregame, and it really made me feel like things were going to go very well in this game. Not everything went perfect. We've got to talk about some serious injury issues, but let's look at the game off the cuff, unscripted. It was a good win. It wasn't a killer win. I feel like they could have won this game by 17, 18 points at one point. But it's hard to tell because it's week 2 whether the Commanders got back into the game because the Packers let the foot off the gas, because they were running out the clock, or they were tired because it was their second game in 5 days. I think that was just as likely. At the end of the game, you could clearly tell both of the defenses were gassed, which is why we had a whole bunch of scoring in the fourth quarter, because I think the defenses were just burnt out after 2 games in 5 days. It's much easier for the offensive players to recover from that short 5-day window than the defensive players. So it does make a lot of sense that towards the end of the game, points started going up on the board a little willy-nilly, and things got closer than they should have been. But let's take a look at the stats first for this game. Jordan Love, 19 of 31 for 292 yards, 9.4 average. Again, he's doing a great job of pushing his down the field average up to a really high level for the start of the season. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Another game without interceptions, folks. That's now over half a season since Jordan Love has thrown an interception. So the narrative that Jordan Love is haphazard with the ball is ridiculous. He did have a close interception last game. I'll give him that. That would have been a legitimate interception. But overall, Jordan Love has been amazing with the football for over half of a season now, going back to last year. So you can't just give me the Jordan Love is reckless with the football narrative. It's not happening. Then up, we have Josh Jacobs with 23 carries for 84 yards. Some of it was really tough sledding, but keep in mind the offensive line was banged up in this game. Not only did we have 2 starters out, but the other 3 starters were probably had a lot of aches and pains after playing 2 games in 5 days. Okay, so fair enough. The running game for the Packers really has to accelerate, and they'll have a good opportunity against the Browns in week 3 in 10 days. We now have 10 days between Packer games. How am I going to live with that when I just went 5 days in between 2 of the most fun games I've probably seen in recent memory for the Packers? Probably back to 2023, I haven't enjoyed a Packers game as much as I've enjoyed the last 2. Savion Williams got into the act, 2 for 24. I really liked how they used Savion in this game as a runner. It reminded me a lot of Deebo Samuels back when he was a rookie, and how the 49ers used him. Matthew Golden had 2 for 15 in the running game. Again, using him as a unique piece along with Savion Williams. In receiving, the story has got to be Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft has arrived. 6 receptions, 124 yards, average of 20.7. He leads the NFL tight ends in yards per catch as of last night. Touchdowns, 1. A long of 57 and targets of 7. This was a Tucker Kraft coming out party. Now, I've said that before. I think it was when the Packers played the Rams last year and Tucker Kraft took over the game. This is take over the game to another level, which is really good because we're going to have some issues with our wide receivers that we need to talk about too. Dontavian Wicks, 4 for 44. A long of 14 with 6 targets. Dontavian Wicks was a great player in this game. He caught everything thrown his way. He caught a lot of critical receptions for 3rd downs. Wicks really stepped up here. Malik Heath had 1 amazing catch for 37 yards. That was the catch of the game up until Tucker Kraft had his 5th long of 57. That was an amazing catch by Malik Heath. And it just shows the depth of talent on this Green Bay Packers team, and we are going to need it. Luke Musgrave, 2 for 32. Romeo Doubs, 3 for 28 and a touchdown. Romeo Doubs was really big in the first quarter, and then he kind of got away from it. I got to look at the all 22 and see if they were just rolling coverage to Romeo and he just was not getting open. I'll be doing that over the next day or so. Chris Brooks, 3 for 27 as a receiver. Matthew Golden, this is the surprising stat line. 0 receptions for 0 yards. I had an amazing parlay going. I hit 4 out of 5, and Matthew Golden was my goose egg because I needed him to get 40 yards, as I told you guys yesterday, and he did not hit. So I got 4 out of 5 on my parlay. I think I got 3 out of 5 last week. So we're due. Let's look at turnovers. No fumbles or interceptions for the Packers, which is good to see. We are consistently winning the turnover game. The turnover game in this game was neutral. There were no turnovers. So we continue to be a +1 in that department. Now let's look through defense. Edgerrin Cooper is a star that is being overshadowed by Micah Parsons. And I think it's actually a good thing. I don't have a problem with it because Edgerrin Cooper is really as much of an engine for what makes this work as Micah Parsons. Am I saying he's as good as Micah Parsons or as impactful? No. But what I'm saying is Edgerrin Cooper is, as we would say, eating the vegetables, right? He's getting the tackles. He's got half a sack in this game. He had 10 tackles in this game. He's eating the vegetables and doing the things that he needs to do to really make the defense work on the back end, the non-pass rushing end. Edgerrin Cooper is really handling his business. Quay Walker had 4 tackles. Unfortunately, he missed a tackle that allowed a Washington touchdown, but I think at that point the defense was just exhausted. Javon Bullard, I think, played really good in this game. 5 tackles, all solo. And Javon Bullard blew up several screens in this game. He was very key to the defense here. Evans had a consistent game with five tackles, 2 solo. McKinney, 3 tackles, 3 solo. Lucas Van Ness, 3 tackles, including a tackle for loss in the backfield that was just a beautiful tackle for loss. Rashawn Gary, 3 tackles, a sack, and a tackle for loss, which would be one and the same. Carl Brooks, Micah Parsons, 2 tackles, half a sack. But there's no question he was more involved in the game than that. And we have Nate Hobbs back into the game with 1 tackle. He did have a really bad penalty, but I think he was trying to save a touchdown because he was beat. So sometimes not all penalties on defense are bad. Sometimes they're better than the alternative, and I think that's what happened with that particular penalty. And Brandon Sorrell got into the business. So, let's talk about the team stats for this game. All right, let's look at the team stats. First downs, 22 for the Packers, 15 for the Commanders. A lot of the Commanders' first downs came in the second half when the game was really out of reach. I think they only had 2 first downs in the whole first half. And that just tells you that the defense was really humming on all cylinders here. Okay? Rushing first downs, 6. Passing first downs, 14. Jordan Love was delivering the ball in a highly efficient way and moving the chains. Can't say enough about what Jordan Love did. This was probably Jordan Love's most complete game, in my opinion, since he played the Cowboys in 2023. I mean, he was doing everything possible, even though he lost one of his best players in the first quarter. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. Fourth down efficiency for the Packers, 0 for 1. They had that 1 fourth down they didn't go for. They went for and they failed. That was disappointing. Third down efficiency, 5 of 12. So this was definitely a defensive struggle, and it's really hard to see whether. Again, we're going to have to see more of Washington to figure out if the Packers let off the gas or the Commanders are just a good team and they found a way to come back, as all good teams do. Let's look at sacks. So the Packers only had 2 sacks in this game for 23 yards, but there was constant pressure in the pocket. Jaden Daniels was stuck in the pocket. He was not able to get away from the pocket. He was very much shackled. He only had 17 yards rushing, which is actually really low for him. Jaden Daniels had his worst game statistically as a starter overall since his rookie season. So I mean, that was last year, but since the beginning of his rookie season is probably more accurate. Um, so let's talk about injuries real quick. So we have some injuries that we have to watch on the offensive line. Zach Tom and Aaron Banks. My opinion is if this would have been a playoff game, they probably would have played. But I think the Packers knew it was off a short week, and that both players were going to have a ability to recover over the next 10 days because we have basically a mini bye before we play the Cleveland Browns. So the Packers, it made a lot of sense for them to be held out of this game so they can recover and be ready for the Browns. Now, Jaden Reed went out with a broken collarbone in the third quarter on a beautiful touchdown score that got called back, unfortunately. But that was such a heartbreaker to see Reed go down. Coach LaFleur says he's going to be out for a while. Typical broken collarbone is going to cost you 5 to 8 games. So we're probably looking at week 11 before Jaden Reed comes back for this game. And it is a big blow because Jaden Reed is a playmaker in this offense. But just like the offensive line injuries, if there was ever a situation where the Packers have depth to overcome an issue, it is at the wide receiver position. And those of you that said that we should trade Romeo Doubs, how would you feel right now if we traded Romeo Doubs and we didn't have Jaden Reed? It would be a huge problem for this offense. So the Packers are going to have to rely on their depth. And I feel like Savion Williams got into this game more probably because of the injury to Jaden Reed. They had to pivot, look at what they had on their bench. Now, they have players on the practice squad they can call up. There's also free agents that they could sign. So the Packers have a lot of mechanisms to address this. But Jaden Reed will go on injured reserve if he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. And we're going to have to look at the calendar and see if the Packers can get through this with their depth. Okay? So we've got the Browns coming up. I think the Browns, the Packers could probably beat the Browns with no wide receivers. They could probably just use Tucker Kraft and Musgrave and probably beat the Cleveland Browns because the Cleveland Browns are just not a complete team by any stretch of the imagination. So we've got that going on. Week 4 against the Cowboys. That's the Micah Parsons revenge game. I think they can put together sufficient offense and defense to win that game without too much trouble. Now, the one game that really perks up my ears here is against the Bengals after the bye week, because after the bye week, they're going to have to play a very high-scoring offense. So it's going to be up to the defense to hold Cincinnati under control, and then the Packers offense is going to have to do just enough to win possibly a shootout in that game. So that game does give me pause, but I don't know what the Bengals are yet, because the Bengals barely won against the Browns last week. They haven't played week 2, so we're going to have to see more of Cincinnati before I'm too worried about that game. Then we go to the Cardinals. The Cardinals can be a sneaky good team, so we're going to have to see what happens there. And then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the schedule. Now, if Jaden Reed makes it back for week 11, that's assuming 8 weeks. If he makes it back for week 11, then the division schedule starts week 12 against the Vikings. So that's actually a good thing that he could be back for the rest of our division matchups, because that is where the division is going to be decided. And I think we'll have Jaden Reed by then. So we're just going to have to play the string out with the depth that this roster has built up, I think by the time they play the Browns, the Packers will have a couple things going for them. I think their offensive line will be back at 100% health wise, number one. Number two, I do think that will give them, because of the mini bye between now. So they're going to be off practice today, obviously, and then they're going to start practicing again probably on Saturday. Saturday they'll probably have a walkthrough. Then maybe next Monday they do a practice. So the Packers are going to have some time to reconfigure their offense with the loss of Jayden Reed. Now, what I would suspect is going to happen is the player that the Packers have that has the best attributes for the slot is Matthew Golden. So I figure they're going to really actually probably put Wicks on the outside and use Matthew Golden in the slot in third wide receiver sets. That makes the most sense. That's where you can make the most of Dontayvion Wicks' skill set, which is getting open deep. He's going to do much better on the outside than the slot. So if you move Matthew Golden into the slot, I think this offense will be all right. I am very concerned about Matthew Golden's lack of receptions in this season. It's been a bit of a disappointment for me. I don't understand it. Now, Jordan Love did miss Matthew Golden on a couple long bombs in this game by just a couple inches, like the fingertips away from big gains. So I think this is just a growing process with Jordan Love and Matthew Golden getting some chemistry, getting in sync. I don't think that's going to be a long-term problem. So it's going to be a short edition here. I'm doing this unscripted because I had sort of a minor emergency to deal with last night and this morning. But I just wanted to give you at least my initial thoughts on the game. I thought the Packers played a B game. If last week was an A game, this week was a B plus game. It was a B plus game up until the fourth quarter. Before the fourth quarter, I would almost argue that this was an A minus game. But both defenses were tired, and the Packers had some offensive struggles that let the Commanders get back into this game. But the game was not as close as the score. It still felt like the Packers won this game significantly. If you look at all the metrics, they absolutely did. So a good victory. We're going to have 10 days to dissect this victory. So tomorrow I'm going to come back. I'm going to watch the All-22, and I'm going to come back with notes on what I saw there that I might have not gotten during the broadcast. And then we're going to dig deep because we have 10 days to figure out how the Packers deal with their injuries, how they rest up and they heal, and they tweak their offense due to the changing personnel to get ready for the Browns. Now, the Packers continue to be amazingly successful in two tight end sets. They continue to be very efficient, and that might also be another way that the Packers really try to address the injury to Jayden Reed. So that's going to do it for this very quick Victory Friday stream. I'm going to take a look at the All-22. So tomorrow I'm going to come back with more news and notes on this game, some nuggets, and try to break down some interesting parts of this game that might be there at first glance. Again, I do want to shout out to the special teams before I go, because the special teams had another very solid game. That's 2 solid games in a row for your Green Bay Packers special teams. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Pack Attack Cast Victory Friday. We'll be back over the next 10 days. I plan on streaming every single day with thoughts on where this team stands. I think we're going to get a feel for where this team stands after the rest of the games this week. I want to see if the Packers end up being top 5 in defense and top 5 in offense by the end of the week, because I think that's the most important metric early in the season, is if we can be in top 5 in both offense and defense, then the Packers are on a really good path. So let's get back to it tomorrow with another edition of the Pack Attack Cast tomorrow. If you haven't subscribed, why haven't you done so? Because you should subscribe and get this information as soon as it drops on the internet. If you're already a subscriber, give us a like. It really helps other people discover this podcast. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.